I don't know about you, but I've started to feel over the last year that some of the hype around mirrorless is just beginning to fade a little bit. Camera launches don't seem as exciting as they used to, and I'm not seeing people talking so much about the latest camera and what's coming out next. And I thought this would be a good time to look back again at the camera that is the legend, the beast and classic, the Canon 6D Mark I. In this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through some of my experiences using this camera, maybe suggest a few lenses for you, talk about what it's really good at, and yeah, there are a few things it's not so great at, but why they might actually turn out to be strengths for you in the long term. And hopefully by the end of this video, you'll feel quite enthusiastic about owning a Canon 6D Mark I. Now, I don't need to make a disclaimer, do I? Canon are not paying me to say anything about this camera because they don't sell it or make it anymore. So, obviously I don't get anything out of doing this. There are three things that I look for in a camera, and this is going to be really hard for a lot of people that are spec sheet obsessed to follow. But if you are, just try and stick with me through this. The things that I look for are good image quality, a good experience, and low or no stress involved with shooting it. Now, the 6D Mark I does not do well on a specs sheet comparison. Have we got to the stage yet where we can all agree that we've learned the lesson that spec sheets don't mean very much? Have we got there? I think we're about there, aren't we? We must be at the tipping point, at least, where people have understood through buying lots of different cameras that your experience of using the high spec cameras doesn't always match what you thought it was going to be. That works the other way around as well. I remember when the 6D Mark I was announced, I was just like, what on earth is Canon doing? That's such a bad idea. I don't even remember how I ended up buying one or using one, but once I got hold of one, I was like, wow, this is one of the best cameras Canon has ever made. So when it comes to the image quality on the Canon 6D, you're going to look at it and say, it's only 20 megapixels. I need more than that. No, you don't. You really don't. Like, what are you doing that needs more than 20 megapixels? Maybe if you're wildlife, yeah, then I might give that to you, but there might be one or two other people that need it. But generally speaking, if you can get just a few megapixels, you're actually probably all right. Like 10 megapixels is enough for me. I've used cameras with 10 megapixels and I've never had any problems with that. So 20 is more than enough. Don't worry about it. The dynamic range isn't as much as some of the newer cameras, but this was one of the cameras, I think it was one of the first Canon cameras that received a boost in dynamic range because the 5D Mark III didn't get it. The 6D Mark I came out after that, and they boosted up the dynamic range. I think the funny thing is that the sensor in the 6D is better than the one that's in the 5D Mark III. When you work with the files, with the image quality, they, for me, as a primarily portrait photographer, and I've done some landscape stuff on it as well, but primarily as a portrait photographer, these are, of all the cameras I've ever used, the 6D Mark I files are the nicest to edit for portraiture. Everything just moves and falls into place so quickly and easily. It just feels effortless to edit, and I love working with the files from it. It's still my number one choice for working in a studio environment. The image quality from this camera, it's not about what you see on the spec sheets. That's what's so hard to explain to people, because if you don't use a variety of different cameras and you don't have much photography experience in general, specs look like that's what matters. But much like you can buy the same food, the same dish at different restaurants, some just make it better than others. And to me, the 6D Mark I makes it better than anyone else. I love the image quality and the way the files edit from this camera. It's just absolutely fantastic. Now, the next thing is the experience that you get from using the camera. So I didn't appreciate for a long time with mirrorless the benefits of having the smaller cameras. I immediately thought, I've got to go for the Z9, get the largest cameras because they're nice to use, especially in the DSLR world. And don't get me wrong, they are kind of nice. And the little Sony camera bodies irritated me at first. And I just thought that they were going down the wrong road with it. And it took me a while to adjust and come around. And now I actually think it's a good direction, because when you start to get functionally good cameras, this was the difference, was you didn't used to get a lot of small cameras that were, very capable, but they've become more capable. Now, with the 6D Mark I, it is a small camera, and some people said, "Oh, it's too small. It's like a, it's like a kid's camera." It's like, but it isn't. The reality is this is extremely comfortable, really good ergonomically. It's a very small camera, and it's the sort of thing that if you're doing travel and anything outdoors, it's really good because you've got a nice little robust, tough little camera that you can work with. And even on the bottom of it here, as you can see, my little finger is on the grip properly. On the back here, you get like a little thumb indent, and on the front here, you get one for your finger as well. It's extremely comfortable to use. Stress-free as well, because the simplicity of it. One thing that happens with mirrorless, and it's kind of a weird situation to me. I like mirrorless cameras as well. I do. Don't get me wrong. I like them. But for all of the things that you can do well, you don't have to spend a lot of time still having to switch focus modes, areas, and all this kind of stuff. You could, with those cameras, strip them down to be extremely simple. But because they can do all these other things, you don't. You still end up switching between focus modes and customizing loads of buttons all over the outside. There's a reason this camera doesn't have customizable buttons on it, and it's because it doesn't need it. This camera only has one functioning center focus point, really. Yeah, it has about 13 focus points technically, but the outer ones are so bad that they're not really usable. Now, that might sound like, if it's only got the center focus point that works, isn't that incredibly basic and just unusable? Now, here's the thing. I think this is really weird. As someone who's, used Z9, Z8, R3, A7, R5, all of these different things, is the experience better on the mirrorless cameras for focus compared to the DSLRs? And it's like a mixed bag. This is what gets me. I find this a very weird balance in my mind, because whilst eye tracking, if you're using a mirrorless camera, the eye tracking, the ability to just have the subject right in front of you and eye track them is really good. But as soon as you start bringing other people into the equation, then you start needing to make smaller focus boxes, or you're sort of doing touch to focus. And then if they move into behind things, or if you're doing street photography or something, and the focus situations become difficult, you're now changing focus box sizes and focus areas and all this kind of stuff in order to keep up. But in all of those situations, with this camera, with my center focus point, I never needed to change anything. There are situations, there's times where it's actually faster just using a center focus point and recomposing. So with these old cameras, what you have to do is literally like look through the viewfinder, focus on the thing that you want to focus on, recompose, take the picture. But the advantage of doing that is that it's always the same. So you're never doing anything different. You'll never have to change any of those focus settings, and you just focus, recompose, and you can handle anything. Sometimes I'll watch YouTube videos and I see people do things like they'll make people go behind something, come back out, or, they'll dip down and come back up and stuff, and see whether the focus tracks and locks on. Well, the thing with this camera is, if you're using that center focus point, none of that's ever an issue. It's just easy for it. Which is kind of mad when you think about it, because you're taking away all of that automation that the camera has in mirrorless, and you're simplifying it. But what does that do? All of that I've just said about all those focus errors, it kind of wasn't my point, because I needed to say that to build up to this thing, which is that simplicity of just using the center focus point and recomposing, it takes away all of that nonsense with change the focus box size and custom focus box sizes. To me, that's starting to feel like a lot of nonsense a little bit. And I get it, it's really good, but it's also not in certain ways, because if you have to keep changing it, then what are we doing? And just using this camera again recently, it's making me think again, wow, just being able to say focus there, focus there, focus there, focus there. It's a nicer experience. That's what it comes down to. It's an actually nicer experience, because you're able to stay in the moment. The difference with these cameras, and why I think the DSLR stuff is still hanging on, if you followed my channel, I've been talking about DSLRs being a good experience for a long time on this channel. And I still believe that they really are, because you're not being confronted by menus and choices and actions to configure this stupid thing to do what you want it to do. You just point and shoot. I mean, really, you just aim it at something, focus, recompose, done. And that actually makes you feel like you're more engaged in the photography process. I feel like I need to say this about photography. All of this stuff about, oh, you need to expose to the right, you need to underexpose, exposing for this. What about ISO at this range and stuff? This is all technical. Like, I don't want to say it's nonsense, but it's not what photography. We shouldn't really be focusing on this stuff. We should be focusing on lighting, composition, mood, atmosphere, that kind of thing. I get it that people want to know all this technical stuff, but it is kind of it's so overdone. It's so like overcooked at this stage that it doesn't really mean that much. So if you're just a little bit here and a little bit there, yeah, you need to pay attention. Like if you're a professional photographer, yeah, you need to know that stuff. But if you're doing more artistic stuff and you're doing more personal work, it's sort of diminishing returns. You know what I mean? We want to be focusing more on the other things. And I think these cameras, they throw you more into the experience of photography. And I think that that's why people are still enjoying using DSLR cameras. And when my experience is consistent and I know how the camera works, I actually become a better photographer for it. And I'm more engaged in the experience. So this is what I wanted to come to with talking about the experience of using it. Because it's such a simple, repetitive action, you feel more engaged in the photography process. And that makes it more enjoyable. It makes it more fun. It just feels a bit better overall. I'd like to know from you guys, though, in the comments, have you had or do you have a 6D Mark I? And what did you shoot with it? And what lenses did you use to do that? The lenses thing is really useful for people because, and I want to speak about this in a moment, there are certain lenses that work really well with certain cameras and some just don't. So if you used a 6D Mark I or you still have one now, please put in the comments what type of photography you did with it and what lenses you'd recommend for doing that. But one thing you need to know with the Canon cameras in general is that a lot of the focus speed and focus performance is going to be down to the lens that you use. Yes, the camera bodies make a difference, but not as much as the lenses do. Some lenses are extremely fast and accurate, and some of them are just not, quite frankly. I'll just rattle off a few lenses that I can say work very well with the 6D Mark I, and also this will be true of the 5D Mark II and the 5D Mark I as well. So the L series zooms, the 24-70 2.8, the Mark 1s 70-200, Mark 1s and 2s. The f4 zooms as well. 24-105 can be iffy though. That can be really iffy sometimes. I don't know why. Some seem to work and some don't work so well. People seem to either get one that works very well, or they can be a bit temperamental. So not always with that. The 16-35 f4 IS, brilliant. The 70-200 f4 lenses, all of them excellent as well. Primes, the 85 1.8 and 135 f2, excellent. Bad are the 50mm 1.2. The 35 1.4 is not so great. The Mark 1 version, haven't used the Mark 2, so can't comment on that. Sigma lenses, hard work. Yeah, I think that's kind of enough. The 50mm 1.8 is not great, quite honestly. But I own it and it's worth using just because of the size and the functionality of it. But in terms of focus performance, it's really on the lower end. And one lens, though, that you should get, and I haven't got any examples to show you, I've looked and I can't find any at the moment, is the 40mm f2.8 STM. I used to own that. I'm going to buy it again. That lens is something special and it's super lightweight as well and it's pretty cheap. You could probably, for a lot of people, just get that lens and be happy. So the value proposition on these cameras is fantastic right now. They're so cheap, and if you look and pick your lenses carefully, don't just buy loads of lenses just because they're relatively cheap now. Just pick what you think you're actually going to use, buy those, and only buy more lenses at the point where you think, okay, I needed that lens and I don't have it. That's when you add on more lenses. Everyone goes through that progression where they start off with not very much, then they buy loads of stuff that they don't really need and end up getting rid of it and coming back to just sort of between 1 and 3, maybe 4 lenses that they actually use. So if you'll probably go through that anyway, but It's easier if you can just go through buying only when you actually need something, not doing the, but what if this and what if that? Well, wait till that actually happens. And then if you needed that thing and you didn't have it, that's the time to buy it, unless you're doing professional work. I've shown you a lot of my studio portraits in this video. If you like the way my pictures look, I've got a free lighting ebook. The links are in the description down below. That will show you some of my favorite lighting setups with diagrams and the effects that you get from doing them. Like I said, it's free. Check it out. Links in the description. Also, I have a portrait editing masterclass, which shows you how I edit my pictures from start to finish, because editing is sometimes half the game in photography, and it can change the way that your pictures look and help you give professional looking images. If you want to check that out, the links are also in the description down below. I hope you enjoyed today's video. I will see you again in the next one. Take care. Bye bye.